So one of the things I've been wanting to try as part of Claude Tries New Things is embroidery. Now I have done some embroidery before, so I do have the supplies, but I've never really gotten into it. I find that a lot with decorative needlework. I much prefer my projects to be practical, but a friend of mine is getting married and I thought it might make a nice wedding gift if I made her and her husband to be an embroidered commemorative sort of wedding present. So they've been together 11 years and they're finally getting married. And one of the things my friend was joking about was that when she gets married, their anniversaries will reset. So they'll go back to celebrating their first anniversary. And she's sort of a little bit miffed, if you like, about losing 11 years worth of anniversary gifts. So I've incorporated them all into my little design. I've drawn this up in Procreate. I'm going to print it out, and I'm actually using an old bit of calico. This is an old toile, but I prefer to do my embroidery not on a white background. I think it, I don't know, it's just my preference. I do have some white fabric, so if I don't like it, I can always try again, but I'm going to print this out. I've also been on the Anchor website and gotten like an alphabet design. So I'm going to use this alphabet for their initials in the middle and the wedding date. Although it doesn't have numbers, so I might just have to freehand those. So let's get started and see how this goes. I printed the design so that it would fit into a 7-inch embroidery hoop, only to discover I didn't have a 7-inch embroidery hoop. But the design fit conveniently onto a piece of A4 paper at that scale, so I just worked with it. I pinned the design to the back of my calico, leaving a generous border all around it, and traced my design with friction pen. I'd seen online that most embroiderers use a water-soluble pen, or at least that's what the Anchor website recommended, but I didn't have one, so I went for one of these friction pens that disappear with heat. I couldn't see all the details of my design through the calico, so I had to go back in and add a few bits freehand, and some of the spacing didn't work out totally even, but I felt confident I could fix that later on. The inspiration for the design was to represent each of the gifts that are traditionally given for each anniversary. So clockwise from the top, we have an envelope representing paper, a cotton reel for cotton, leather hide for leather, a flax flower for linen, a log for wood, an iron for iron, a sheep for wool, a Greek helmet for bronze, a vase for pottery, a can for tin, and a steel girder or eye bar for steel. So this is how far I got after my first day. I'm not happy with the envelope. I think this is too... It just disappears, doesn't it? You can't really see I've done anything. But I like the iron and the sheep, so I'm using French knots to make the sheep look nice and woolly. Part of my dilemma, if you like, is I've got some really nice silk embroidery flosses from a project years ago I want to use as much as I can. Seems nice and bougie for a wedding present, right? But a lot of the ones I have are quite chunky, so it's a bolder look than I'm used to with embroidery. It's more modern, I suppose. And yes, I've kind of come to realise that it's going to be a lot of grey and brown because we've got tin, steel, leather, wood, we've got an iron. The bronze helmet. I'm thinking for the bronze helmet I'll use the silk embroidery thread that I used for my 1840s dress. So that would be quite nice and sort of a real proper sort of bronzy colour rather than... Well, the only other sort of closest thing I had was that, which isn't really right either. But yes, I'm going to settle in and finish off my little sheep friend, and I'll see how far I get today. I suppose on another note, what I was thinking was if the outside does end up being lots of greys and browns and things, my initials in the middle, my monograms, can be more colourful. Just haven't decided what I'm going to do about those yet, and I'm leaving it now deliberately to see how I feel about the balance of the rest of it. This is how far I got after 2 days. I'm really pleased with my bronze. I think I called it a Roman helmet and then my dad corrected me and said it was Greek. Bronze helmet anyway. I also really like how the eye bar turned out. How do my neighbours have any grass left? I swear, they mow the lawn like every day. I think we're safe. So this is how far I got. I like the way the eye bar looks and I like the way the helmet looks, but like you can hardly see the letter, so I do want to redo that. But I sort of came to an impasse because I didn't have any of the right colours for some of the other things. So this is a pottery, so I've got sort of a terracotta style pot, and I didn't really have the right kind of pink or brown. This was sort of the closest I had, and I didn't have anything the right colour blue for the flax flowers. And then I remembered, I mean, I've got loads of green. One of my local charity shops has a massive craft section, and somebody's obviously donated their entire embroidery floss collection, because they sell these for 50p. And they even say on them, a lot of them, what brand and shade they are. So this one's Anchor 914, and this is the one I got for the pottery. This one, I don't know what brand this one is, but it's 3839, and this is Anchor 117, so I guess that's not Anchor. But they're sort of, flax flowers are sort of this shade range. So now I've got those, I can carry on with this. I've been umming and ahhing how to do the flowers. My instinct was to do a lazy daisy stitch because I know how to do those and they're easy. But I think I want to try and do a long and short stitch and do lazy daisy stitches for the leaves. Because I've got, everything else is quite graphic. I feel like delicate little flowers isn't really going to fit with the rest of it. Let's start with the stalks. So I need to double check what sort of colour green I want. Looks like it's quite a grassy sort of green. So I think I'm going to go for that one. Let's do the stalks first, and then I'll think about the petals. And I am coming to you from my new and improved tripod that does not fall over when you angle it. So hopefully I'll actually be able to show you some of the stitching now. I mean, I wish I had the patience to be this organised, but alas, I do not. I'm also not that passionate about embroidery. Maybe if I were more passionate, I'd take the time to bother to do it. I can't find the end. I reckon for the stem, we do stem stitch. See, that's the thing, I do know embroidery. And I suppose, like a lot of children, embroidery was how I first started in sewing. We had, I was going to say old ladies, they probably weren't that old, volunteers, retired ladies come in and volunteer after school to teach sewing when I was at primary school, junior school. And I remember vividly making a little needle case, which I thought I still had, but I can't find it, so maybe I don't. So, you know, I'm not a complete novice, I guess. So far, I have really enjoyed the process of doing this. But as is usually the case with me, if it doesn't have a purpose, a practical purpose, and I can use it, I find it really difficult to get motivated. And I know, art for art's sake is a thing, and I shouldn't have to justify art. But I can't help it, it's just the way I am. I'm really glad I chose the flowers to represent linen rather than trying to come up with some sort of fabric representation, because they're going to add some really nice colour to this otherwise quite grey piece. Right, I think that's good enough. I'm just going to, again, probably bad practice, travel that back down here. Do a little bit of long and short stitch here with the green. Remember the old lady who taught me embroidery telling me that the back should be as neat as the front. And her sort of like looking at 11-year-old me and deciding that, yes, maybe that was a little too of an exacting standard for an 11-year-old. So having looked at these flax flowers again, they've actually got a yellow centre. Oh, I do have some yellow. It's not quite the right kind of yellow, but I think it'll have to do. And I was going to have the lighter blue in the middle, but actually the darker blue is in the middle. It's even more purple. Don't have any purple. We'll see. they're so small. And actually I feel like this flower is too close to there, so I might have to move it down a bit. I might have to redraw it. Let's start with this one instead. Now I watched a couple of tutorials on long and short stitch because I'm not the best at it, but they were all for much bigger projects than this. So hopefully I'll be able to create the right effect. So this is how far I've gotten today. I'm really pleased with it. The flowers, my 2 shades of blue, next to each other in the embroidery, you can hardly tell the difference. So that's fine. I'm glad I did the yellow centers. I think they're small enough that it doesn't matter really. But anyway, I'm quite pleased with my cotton reel. I love the way that looks. And the pottery pot, I'm glad I went with the pink to sort of balance out the pinkish oranges. I still don't really know what to do about my envelope. Do I just double it up, use a much thicker thread? 3 strands instead of 2, that's what I did for the outline of the pot. But then I also considered, should I make it a brown envelope, like a sort of manila envelope? I've got this kind of colour, which looks much more golden on screen than it is in real life. Or my other thought was possibly to change it to be a book to represent paper, and then I could have a coloured spine, and then I could have a dark blue perhaps to sort of balance the blue here. I don't know. Anyway, I've got to think about it, but so far I'm really pleased with the way it's turned out. I think it looks great. It's a mess in here, I know, never mind the fat suit. But I wanted to show you because I finished it, yay! I'll show you what I redid for the envelope. Yep, I just used brown, so it looks like a manila envelope. I also did long stitches. Totally pinched this idea from somebody else's project I saw on Pinterest. I'm not even ashamed. But yeah, so I used long stitches for the flap of the envelope, and then I added a little heart so that it's like a love letter. That was a really good needle, so I'm going to save that for my next embroidery project, because I did really enjoy doing this, to my surprise. So my lettering and the date I did in stem stitch. I could have done something else, but because it looks a little bit rough and ready, but then I thought the whole embroidery is rough and ready really, isn't it? And with all these sort of industrial motifs, felt like something really delicate probably wouldn't match the vibe. So I used navy blue. This isn't black, it's navy blue, because I didn't have black, but also I thought it tonally was better. And then I had no idea what colours to pick to do the long and short stitch. So this template was free on the Anchor website. So this is a design to make these really small monogrammed embroidery hoops, but I used their lettering, and just so I had consistent sizing. I found that really difficult to design myself. And so I did do the long and short stitch, which they recommend. They recommended 5 colours, but I didn't think I would have room for that. And so I ended up with 4, and I think, just trying to get it in the light nicely for you. I think I got a pretty good painterly kind of effect, which is what I always struggle with long and short stitch. So now the frame is going to be delivered today. It's not here yet, but I've got to get rid of my pen marks. So I used one of these friction pens. It's upstairs, isn't it? And you can iron it off. It comes off with heat, basically, it disappears with heat. But I'm a bit nervous that it might come back. So I'm going to try washing it. I've seen other people in videos I've watched about cross-stitch and embroidery and things wash the marker off. So I don't know whether they've got like a water dissolvable marker. I don't know if this will wash off. I don't know what it's going to do with my stitching if I lose a few days work on my first embroidery. I mean, I would be upset. I'm going to wash it anyway because I think I'd rather risk it. So let's go and see if this works. I washed the embroidery with some delicate hand wash, and I used this little brush for cleaning reusable straws to scrub at the most visible marks. I actually switched to using a small paintbrush later on, which worked much better. It took a couple of rinses, but I'm pretty sure I was able to get most of the pen out. If I do this again, I will certainly invest in a water-soluble marker. The frame's here. I mean, the box is absolutely ruined, so let's hope it survived. Oh. Hey! Looks like it. Oh, I'm really pleased with that. It's cute! Okay. It's just one of these. So let's take that off. So I think what I'm going to do, because obviously the concept for my embroidery is a little obscure, is I'm going to write, I'm going to type a little note and then tape it on the back, so it sort of like explains what everything is and why I've done them an embroidery of an iron and a steel bar. It's still drying for now though. So I'm just giving this an iron. It's not completely dry, so I'm going to iron it dry. And hopefully that will also kind of set the stitches in. A bit hot for that silk. So I was gonna wrap it round a bit of card, but I actually don't think I've got the space in my picture frame. Let's sort of use this as a measure to find the centre, at the very least. Because I'm not really sure what I'd call the centre of this either. I've got a crease in that. Let's say the bottom of my and sign. It's not an ampersand, but oh God, this is a faff. I then decided the easiest way to make sure I centred everything correctly was just to wrap the edges around the bit of paper. It had the added benefit of providing a little bit of tension to everything so it didn't sag or wrinkle in the frame. I used quilter's clips to hold it in place and pressed along the edges to make it nice and crisp and even. I trimmed the raw edges with pinking shears to prevent fraying and also to get rid of some of the extra bulk. I didn't know if there would be too much fabric to get the frame to close properly, and this seemed like the best solution. I secured the edges with masking tape. I had hoped to use a prettier washi tape, but I didn't have any, and I thought actually maybe it was better to have a more temporary or removable fixative should they want to change the frame, which might not be to everyone's taste. It's so cute! I love it! Are you ready? Here it is! I am so pleased with how it's turned out. It's not perfect by any means, but for my first embroidery project in a really long time, I'm really happy I've been able to reproduce something that I'm really not ashamed to give to my friends as a wedding present. All I've got to do is print out my little thing for the back. I think I'll double tape that on. That should be fine, right? And then I can wrap it up. So I think this was quite successful as far as trying new things goes. So if you're into embroidery and you think there's a project or a technique that I should try because you think I'd like it, let me know in the comments, because I'll definitely be doing this again. I just found it really therapeutic and surprisingly quick. Maybe it was because of the techniques I used, but anyway, here's to trying new things. Thanks for watching. See you next time.